The Knicks head into the All-Star break with some insanity. They survived the highest scoring game in the NBA this season, 149 to 148 over the Hawks. Jalen Brunson was the hero. We'll tell you how he got it done next.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? I am Gavin, Schall, credentialed NBA media member, and your Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. He is Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of the Strickland, the greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. You can check them out on all forms of social media at thestrick.land. And of course, as always, you are watching Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 days a week. And be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you never miss the best insight on your favorite team. If that's not enough, if you're a sicko, and after tonight, I would be a sicko. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introduce the Locked On Knicks Daily Newsletter, the one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with this podcast and the all-new Locked On Knicks newsletter to get writing from Alex and I. I put together, I don't know, something like 1,200 words on Karl-Anthony Towns' offensive and defensive struggles against the Boston Celtics earlier this week. Alex is writing great stuff every other day. You can also check out our team of national writers and, of course, Josh Lloyd giving you the best tips in all fantasy basketball. It is worth it for that alone. On today's show, the Knicks, a crazy finish game. They led by 18 points in the second quarter, 12 points in the fourth. Trae Young went off at the end of the game. The Knicks looked like they were going to blow it despite some late shot making from Jalen Brunson. And similarly crazy overtime. Jalen Brunson gets a dagger with 17 seconds left. George Niang misses at the buzzer. And in a game that was on basalt, the Knicks come out on top. I'll say it one more time because it was crazy. 149 to 148, Alex. They head into the All-Star break. Third in the Eastern Conference, 36-18, a top three record they've had since Pat Riley left 30 years ago, heading into the All-Star break. Was not easy to get there, though.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, the late game execution left a little bit to be desired. Let's just put it kindly in that way, I guess. A really bad pass from Karl-Anthony Towns gets picked off. Dyson Daniels, luckily, only converts on one of two free throws when the Hawks were down 3. And then the Knicks, go to move the ball up the court again. And Josh Hart coughs it up. And it was just not the prettiest exchange there. He fouls, Trae Young down the stretch, and that allows them to tie it. And then the Knicks can't win it with about 3 seconds left. But luckily, Jalen Brunson comes through in the overtime. I mean, he was coming through, to your point, he was coming through in the fourth quarter to begin with. I mean, this was sort of the Karl-Anthony Towns show for most of it until the very end when the Knicks just really needed Brunson to come to it. Not to say that he didn't do anything before the final few minutes or whatever and the overtime, but I mean, that was when his impact was most felt. The Knicks kind of were just like, we need buckets. We need to stay alive here. And Jalen Brunson first, the first one that kind of took my breath away was it hits a 3 right in Dyson Daniels' face. I mean, this guy is probably, I mean, look, it's not just that he's terrorizing Jalen Brunson, but this guy is probably the guy that is most terrorized him this year, I would say. I think that he is the greatest foil to Brunson and that he's much taller than him, much longer than him, just as quick as him, and, just has crazy quick hands, leading the NBA in steals, had 4 steals in this game. I mean, he's a fantastic defensive player, definitely the guy that's done the best individual job of guarding Jalen Brunson this season, I think. And yet Brunson just kind of all just with quick twitch reflexes, managed to get this 3 over him late in the game to give the Knicks, I think at the time, a 4-point lead. It looked like that was going to be all they needed. Yeah. And then obviously things fell apart down the stretch where they ended up tied up. But then later on in the overtime, brings the ball down the floor with like roughly 20 seconds on the clock. And with 11 left, just pulls up from the mid-range, just drives in, very quick stop on a dime for a mid-range shot, and freezes Daniels just far enough away from him to get a shot over his outstretched hand. Both times, just, Brunson going all the way into the bag of tricks, using his full ability to start and stop on a dime, his full ability to, use his quick twitch reflexes to, give a quick look one direction or another, just one quick little movement to freeze his defender for just enough time to get that quick release three off in the one in the fourth quarter. And then, stopping on a dime in the overtime to freeze Daniels there. It was just brilliant shot making down the stretch from Brunson. This is, I guess, much to the chagrin of like the one guy in our YouTube comments that keeps coming in and being like, Cat is the only real all-star and Brunson's a ball hog that's holding the team back. Well, maybe you think that, and if you do, you're foolish, because I mean, this is the reason that you have this guy on the team. This is why you're building around him. He's clutch as hell. He makes the shots that he needs to make, and he just is a fantastic ball player that can get you a bucket when you need it the most with no help at all, even against arguably the best defender in the NBA at this particular moment. So huge hats off to Jalen Brunson. I thought this was one of his best games of the season, definitely one of his signature games of the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's an incredible first half of the year. Like in terms of his scoring, passing efficiency, and keeping turnovers down. There was some combination of those numbers that he's now hit 2 seasons in a row that I think no one in NBA history has ever hit. His isolation numbers, which was just the aspect of this game that stood out to me, was, to your point, like, I wouldn't even say that Dyson Daniels is the ultimate Jalen Brunson stopper. I would just say that Dyson Daniels is the ultimate stopper, period. Like, kind of came out of nowhere to take that crown. Maybe you had Alex Caruso, maybe you had someone like Herb Jones, but I would say he is in a category of his own. And Jalen now, after struggling the first 2 games against the Hawks, he has won that matchup now twice in a row on the season. Jalen, he's like 7th in the NBA in total isolation points per game, but in terms of points per possession, he's been better than Shea. He's been better than Jason Tatum, just behind 2 older guys, James Harden, Kevin Durant, for the best of any of the higher volume guys in the league, also behind Zach LaVine. He's been incredible, but I thought we should go back and just say how this game was won, just because it was on bath salts. It was crazy. Like, first quarter, I thought was one of the sharper quarters the Knicks have played in some time. Like, Alex, you've been asking, like, when are we going to get back to the early season Knicks offense? And that's what it looked like. Just beautiful ball movement across the board. A lot of it was inspired by the fact that the Hawks again put Trae Young on Mikal Bridges, and the Knicks wisely, which they did not do during the NBA Cup, we're bringing Trae into the action, using Mikal as a screener. Brunson over and over again was splitting, like, because Dyson Daniel would try to hover around, not give up the switch, and Trae would just be like, all right, Jalen would just be like, if you're going to be indecisive, I'm going to split it, hit Mikal. Led to some beautiful ball movement sequences, some amazing shot making from JB that I'll get into more later. 16 points in the first quarter from him, and then Karl-Anthony Towns, just an extraordinary second and third quarter, 18 in the second, 15 in the third. The defense, though, I thought really fell off in the third, where it was good enough on Trae Young in the first half, and Mikal Bridges sort of let go of the rope, maybe just the accumulation of the minutes he's been playing all season, but he started getting cooked by Trae Young, who had just a crazy game, even if he wasn't that efficient scoring-wise. He finished with 38 points and 19 assists, 8 turnovers. I mean, just doing everything for Atlanta. And there was a stretch where Mikal had absolutely no shot against him. Campaign opens up the fourth with a personal 9-0 run to get the Knicks rolling, put them up by 12. And then from there was a Trae Young show. Logo threes, lob dunks, bad defense from Mikal, bad defense from Josh Hart, bad defense from Karl-Anthony Towns. And then, to your point, the Knicks are up by 6 after 2 Josh Hart free throws with 18 seconds left, and they managed to self-destruct a George Niang 3. Karl-Anthony Towns throws the ball away on the inbound. Maybe he was blaming Mikal Bridges. I didn't get it. You had 2 timeouts. Just take a timeout. It was a bad pass. Daniel stole it. They go 1-2 at the line, and then Towns gives up the free throw. 2 Trae Young free throws after another Kobe White moment where Josh Hart fouls him with 2 seconds left, Trae facing away from the rim, and then that led into the Brunson overtime heroic. So just a crazy, crazy basketball game. But I don't know. There's even more we could say about Brunson, or if you want to go into Cat, because he also had an amazing night offensively.
No, let's talk more about Jalen Brunson, but we'll do that in just a moment when we get back in and then get into Karl-Anthony Towns this night as well. And a sort of bounce back for Precious Achiuwa, or I don't even know if you can call it a bounce back, probably just definitively his best game of the season so far. So we'll talk about all that and much more in just a moment when we get back in.
But first, I want to say about our good friends over at Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into routine. If you guys have been listening, you know I made a cross-country move over the summer, and Wayfair was such a help and will continue to be a help in building up the new place. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair is everything you need all within your budget. Again, I'm trying to build up my new spot, and Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style and budget. My favorite part is the free and hassle-free delivery, even for larger items. Wayfair's site was so easy to navigate. I found everything I needed in no time. So give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, Alex, I want to stick with Jalen Brunson because I would Trae maybe like for this third and the fourth got the better of him, but that first quarter, like I mean, not that they were matched up 1-on-1, but in terms of how they were both controlling the game, I thought it was a masterclass from Jalen Brunson the night after he just had a disastrous performance against the Pacers. Good note for Tom Thibodeau, a functional night off can do a guy well because he was just selflessly getting off the ball over and over again. Like I mentioned, like early on, like just a brilliant bullet of a bounce pass between Trae and Dyson to hit Mikal for a baseline jumper. Did the same thing again, and then Bridges hit Hart going backdoor for a reverse layup. Maybe one of my favorite pieces of footwork from him all year. He hit like a twirl, like Disney Cup ride spinorama on Onyeka Okongwu in the corner. It was just nasty footwork, nasty shot, like 19 feet away, fade away, got it to go on a dime. You knew at that point it was going to be a good night for him. Got a high screen from Josh Hart. And then George Niang hedged, and when Dyson was trying to recover, there was a gap, and he just put a three in between both of them, and then a jumper with 2 seconds left. Like it was just about as good of a quarter shooting the basketball, scoring the basketball that Jalen Brunson has played all year. You mentioned the late shots, but then even in the fourth, or excuse me, even in OT, like he had a weird overtime. It was very up and down. Hit free throws, ran out for a layup, botched the lob to Precious Achiuwa, then got stripped by Dyson Daniels that led to a Hawks run out and layup. But made up for it with the late game winner between the legs, crossover, hezzy splash over Niang. And then even before that, hit Precious from like 30 feet away on a one-handed laser when Niang just totally fell asleep. So it was kind of an up and down night in some way for Brunson. Like both him and Cat had weird turnover issues in this game that I think helped keep Atlanta in it. But overall, just a brilliant offensive showing. 36-8, 13-21 from the field, 3-7 from three. Like it was an all NBA type night for a guy who's about to start an all-star game.
Yeah, I think ultimately like Brunson and Cat and the whole team in general just sort of they were almost cooking too much in this game to the point where they got a little too comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the biggest issue with regard to the turnovers. Like it just seemed like, like Tibbs was saying, I've heard this quote like 3 times in the last like 2 days, that, he doesn't want the All-Star break to start early, like he doesn't want these guys to think that they didn't have to show up for these last 2 games or whatever, that anything is done before, the final buzzer was done tonight. And I did sort of feel like once they got out to that like almost 20-point lead at one point that they kind of just were like starting to mess around a little bit, and they started doing kind of some of the foolish passes and stuff, like as if they thought that like, oh, this team just traded DeAndre Hunter, so they're in tank mode now. Like this team was still, I got to give them props, like for all that they did to, move DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovich at the deadline. Like they added quality players back. Like they're still pretty formidable. Like Georges Niang just annoys the crap out of me. Like that guy just always plays the Knicks crazy good for whatever reason. And like Terrence Mann is pretty solid. And, I think that they did pretty well for themselves, like as far as the players that they got back to continue kind of this like six seed-ish, team you don't want to face in the playoffs kind of trajectory that they have going on right now, thanks to Trae and Dyson and, all those guys there. So, I think all in all, that was kind of the Achilles heel of the night, which led to the comeback and all that stuff. And then just some kind of ridiculous shot making from Trae. But I'm with you, like with Brunson, it wasn't just the fact that he was scoring so well, like the way that he got so many guys going in that first quarter. Like, it's obviously not the only reason that like Precious Achiuwa got going, but he just seemed to be consistently looking for him and like keeping his eyes up for him. That late dunk that Precious got was crazy, that he got that wide open. But
it was like someone tranked Niang from the crowd and like hit him with like the Will Ferrell old school like dart from Stifler.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like, I mean, I don't know exactly what went on with Niang there, other than the fact that everybody was so fixated on Brunson that they kind of were forced to like keep their eyes up on him, and then that allowed Precious to get loose, which sort of happened early on too. There was another one of those early that Brunson lasered to Precious, and he was also kind of wide open on the baseline because the whole defense was just concerned with what Jalen Brunson was doing. And he managed to just kind of keep the attention off of Precious, not look him down at all, and just get that pass in there, like almost no look. So, I thought that was great. Also hitting Precious on a cut early was great too. That pass that you mentioned to Bridges was fantastic, just lacing it in between those defenders. Like, I thought he did a good job of setting the tone in all ways in this game. That's all you can really ask of him. I mean, he's the superstar of the team. Like, he's the guy that's going to have the ball in his hands the most often. And I do think he probably came into this one, first off, probably feeling pretty well rested after not getting to play very much last night because of all the foul woes and everything. But secondly, probably it seemed like wanting to redeem himself a bit for that, because I'm sure that he felt poorly for how he performed in that game and how he kind of let a few things get to him and made some foolish fouls, whatever. Basically took himself out of the game with like 20 minutes of game time left yesterday. Yeah. I'm sure he was regretting that a bit and wanting to come through, and he did that in every possible way that he could have for the Knicks in this one. Again, other than the turnovers, which were a little more than what you would want. Only credited with 3 each, or with 3 for him, 3 for Hart, 7 for Cat. That was probably the bigger issue there. But all in all, like a pretty fantastic game for Jalen Brunson. Definitely one to remember going into the All-Star break, and one that we'll probably remember, when we're thinking about things retrospectively at the end of the season. I think doing what he did to Dyson Daniels in this game just is not easy, and kind of shows the further growth that he's making, even just throughout this season, where it seems like Jalen Brunson is just constantly like the Terminator or something, just like compiling data, getting the intel on guys that he's facing. Or like, okay, maybe a less supernatural or sci-fi reference would be like a hitter that gradually gets better against a pitcher in baseball, that learns their tendencies and maybe starts off a little shaky against them, and then suddenly by the time they're a few games into their career against the guy, starts being able to hit their best pitches and whatever, because they're paying attention, taking notes on these guys mentally, and just coming up with the scouting report in their head in real time on what they have to do. It's just it was a really impressive showing for him against, like you said, probably the best individual and team defender in the NBA right now in Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, it was he's incredible, and there are times this year where I've certainly been guilty of just being like, all right, like putting and I'm going to say the same thing about Cat tonight, like putting everything with Brunson and Cat in the context, like, is it good enough to win a championship? Is it good enough to win a championship? Well, if you don't do this, you can't win a championship. But at some point, you just have to sit back and appreciate that. Like, I mean, the same thing I was saying after the Luka Doncic trade, like, there's no guarantee we will ever watch a player offensively better than Jalen Brunson in our lifetime on the New York Knicks. And if there is one, it might just be Karl-Anthony Towns. But this is rare. You and I have been Knicks fans for 20 years. We've never seen anything quite like this. Like, you maybe caught the very tail end of Ewing, but not really, if I remember correctly. So yeah, this is special. And speaking of special, Karl-Anthony Towns was certainly a special in this one, just getting to the rim at will early. Atlanta, much like Indiana, down Miles Turner, just did not have anyone to guard him. Like, they tried Daniels a little bit actually at the start of the third quarter, They tried Okongwu. Dominic Barlow in particular was barbecue chicken pretty much the whole way through. Cat, it was like in the second, it was a combination of he hit a logo three and then two other threes in quick succession just to step inside. And he looked like he looked like Steph Curry. He looked like Trae Young. Like it was just a ridiculous display of shooting. You don't want to be too reactionary. You also don't want to blame when it's not going well on his injury, but maybe a good sign, Alex, that the thumb and the knee are both feeling better because he was stroking it well. He was driving well. It felt like he had like 3 or 4 different times where he got downhill to the left and then finished with a bank with his right hand. The last one of those was an and one on Okongwu. It was 15 points in a little over 5 minutes to start the quarter. And it reminded me of the Wolves game where like he just couldn't miss. And then he basically did it again to start the third quarter where he had 12 straight points for the Knicks to open the third quarter, like bullying Dyson Daniels, scoring over Okongwu, 2 more threes, 10 points in 4 minutes to start the third. And then he only scores, he had 39 with 5 minutes left in the third. He only scores 5 points over the final 20 minutes of this game, makes the mistakes down the stretch. But I think it is notable, his defense, which again was not very good to quite bad for most of the night, really stepped up in overtime on that end of the floor. Got to put back on the offensive end, strip Trae Young on what would have been a floater for a steal, then jump to deflect a Trae Young hook pass to get the Knicks running, and then finally got stuck on an island against Trae Young and shut him down one-on-one. So I thought really admirable defense from Cat to bounce back and make up for what was just a disastrous finish for him in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I want to expand a little bit on Cat and the defense that he showed late in this game. Again, to sort of counteract some of the less than stellar defense that he had at other points in the game. So we can talk about him. Precious Achiuwa's probably best game of the season to date, and then a little bit of a step back for the bench in this game, where really the starters pretty much had to all play the rough equivalent of a full NBA game in this one, while the bench was not super active. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. All right, Gavin. So to finish up on Cat, before we move to some of the other players here, I'm with you. I thought it was a absolutely dominant performance for him. Obviously, it bears repeating again: 44 points, 10 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals. I don't think this stat has come up yet, but they said on the broadcast that this is the first time since Ewing that a player's had 2 straight 40 and 10 games. Obviously, if he comes back from the All-Star break and does it again, I think he's possibly looking at a team record, which is crazy. It's kind of nuts. I mean, you're correct in your assessment. I never really got to see Patrick Ewing as Patrick Ewing. You know, I think in my first year that I kind of started caring about the Knicks was the year that they basically did it without him, which was 98, 99. And then, you know, beyond that, he played one more season with them and then was traded. And, you know, one of the more infamous teams in trades in team history. So, you know, it is what it is there. But from what I've seen, you know, of his highlights and whatever, it certainly seems like offensively, you know, Cat is about as imposing as Patrick used to be on his best nights, which is crazy because this is a guy that is so synonymous with the Knicks record books and everything else. The fact that Cat is touching a lot of these records that Patrick took a whole career to set in just his first season with the Knicks it just really speaks a lot to just how crazy dominant he's been and just how great of a fit this team has been for him, at least from an offensive perspective. And, you know, hopefully we're approaching a time soon where, you know, they'll be able to experiment a little more with defensive looks that maybe will help hide, you know, some of Cat's deficiencies on that end a little better. Mostly looking at Mitchell Robinson for that, if they can manage to make something work there. But in the meantime, I mean, these offensive displays when he's at his best are just like breathtaking. You know, I think in this one, it was sort of like almost like the antithesis of the last game. So it's kind of crazy to see like the full, in 2 straight 40-point games, seeing the full gamut of what he's able to offer too. In the sense that the game against the Pacers was so little about the 3-point shot and more about just getting inside and just imposing his will there. And he certainly did some of that in this game. But so much of this one was just like, I, by the way, am the best 3-point shooting big man. If you look at a lot of statistics in NBA history, but probably the best 3-point shooting big man in the NBA today without much issue. And, he just came out and looked ready to show that in this one. And I'm with you. I think I'm feeling a lot less concerned about the injuries now, which is good. I mean, maybe that just means that, the game against the Celtics the other day was just kind of a stinker and we could just chalk it up to that, which I'm definitely way happier to have be the case than, things still lingering with him, which, it seems they obviously aren't. He's playing physical. The stroke looks like it's back with the 3. Obviously injuries are volatile too. So maybe it's just, things felt good for the last couple of days and maybe won't feel as good in a couple of days or whatever, but he has, for the most part, the same layoff that everyone else is about to have. He's going to play some minutes in the All-Star game or whatever. And, fine. I don't even think he's technically starting anymore, even though he was voted a starter. I'm pretty sure based off his draft position onto Team Chuck is his team, right? Like, I don't even know if he's actually starting anymore. There's no real clarity on that as to what happens as far as the guys that were voted to be starters. So whatever, he'll probably play a handful of minutes and then get a nice long time to rest up before the Knicks come back. So you love to see that. Precious Achiuwa doesn't really need a rest, I guess, because if anything, he'll probably be playing less once the Knicks get back. Hopefully OG Anunoby's back. Hopefully Mitchell Robinson's back. And unfortunately, that might mean a little less Precious Achiuwa after he just put up probably his best game of the season. 26 points, 8 boards, an assist, a steal, 2 blocks, shot 12 of 16 from the floor. Didn't really have to take any threes to make that happen. 0 of 1 from 3. So, just a game where he attacked and attacked and attacked and attacked. And we mentioned like some of the passes from Brunson that freed him up, and just the attention that Brunson was drawing kind of freeing him up. And I felt like it was just kind of in general, he just leached off of the lack of attention being paid to him and perfectly utilized it. Made lots of great cuts in this game. Was getting in for dunks, but not just that, like getting up for, layups too. And hit one little like free throw line jumper at one point, which was nice too. So just kind of a well-rounded effort from Precious and really kind of showed what he has in his bag.
Yeah, I thought just an impressive finishing game from him is how I would describe it. And I think to your point, like Jalen deserves a lot of credit just for building his confidence up early, and Tibbs does too, because they made an effort, like even when they had that like ugly claustrophobic Hart, Precious, Hukporti lineup out there. Not an insult to any of them personally, all very handsome men, but ugly in terms of how the offense looks when they're all out there. Tom Thibodeau drew up an empty side pick and roll where he just put all 3 guys like stuffed in the corner on the other side and said, you 2 go 2-on-2 for Brunson and Precious. And that was Brunson hitting Precious for a bounce pass for a dunk. Some up and down defense, but one really nice moment where he switched on to Trae, forced an airball 3 at the shot clock horn, and then just some of some of the ISO stuff was really good, like going at Onyeka Okongwu, who's a really good defender, spinning on him, flipping it in. Had like my maybe single favorite non like Brunson or Cat ISO play of this game was him on a short roll, a beautiful like double clutch slip to Hart, out to and then he was on the short roll, he caught it, like 2 guys on him, like double pump, pass to Hart, kick to Mikal for a corner 3, and then there was another one of those where it was like Brunson to Hart, and then like it's Brunson to Bridges, Precious cutting in from the baseline, and he finished like an and one up and under. And then late in the game, just a couple of really tough buckets. Like Hart put him in a really tough position because he threw this pass over the top and there were 2 guys on him, and Precious just sort of waited it out, reverse pivot layup, and then had another like post up and lay on Barlow with whatever, like a minute and a half to go, and then 2 clutch free throws. Like I did not expect him to make those free throws with 29 seconds left. That put the Knicks up 135-131. So just a lot of different really good things from Precious Achiuwa in this game. I wanted to note on Mikal Bridges. I thought like a mixed bag of a night, like kind of similar to the Pacers game where he just didn't get a lot of opportunity. And you understand it because when Brunson's cooking like that, Cat's cooking like that, of course he's going to be a tertiary option. But Alex, I wish they learned their lesson from that last Hawks game and said, hey, if Trae Young is on him, like at times run your offense through freaking Mikal Bridges. And they sort of tried to do that with the screening early, and it led to some good buckets. They tried to do it again early in the third quarter, and it immediately, like the first time they went to it, it led to him getting double teamed, him kicking it to Brunson rotating it to Cat hitting a three. Another one where Trae like gambled for a steal and he hit a mid-range jumper. But from there, like was just pretty quiet the rest of the game. Missed a wide open baseline jumper with 40 seconds left that could have put them up by 3. Again, the defense in the third quarter was not very good. I don't want this to be a crap on Mikal type of thing, but I just thought like partially out of his own lack of aggressiveness, but even more so out of the Knicks not emphasizing it. Like in the stretches where it wasn't Brunson and Cat, I would have force fed him because like Trae on him is just an automatic double, and it doesn't feel like the Knicks leaned into that quite enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, I do wish that they would have done that more because that was kind of what got, if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the games that sort of got Mikal on one of his recent hot streaks too.
That was also, he was locking up Trae on that, and I think the offense fuels the defense sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, especially if you're like doing it one-on-one against the guy that you're guarding on the other end too, like they're for whatever reason putting him on you on offense, and then you're locking him up on defense. Like that feels pretty good. Now, granted, like it would be a stretch to say that he fully locked Trae Young down this game, and yet, like, I mean, Trae took what 14 free throws, something like that. Yeah, 12 of 14 from the free throw line, and I mean, he was pulling out all the tricks in this one. I mean, not to say that like Jalen Brunson doesn't do some similar stuff, but I mean, just to the point of like there was one that really stood out to me where I was like, man, like what is Bridges supposed to do with that? Yeah. Where it was like there was a screen set and Bridges is trying to get skinny around it, and Trae literally like just cuts in so tight to the screen and then sort of bumps himself into Bridges and then goes like flies backwards. I'm like, and he gets the foul call on that, and that was in the bonus too in the fourth quarter. I was kind of just like, what is he meant to do at that point? You know, it's like there's nothing you can do. You know, it's just like you're just kind of doomed there to where that's going to be a foul no matter what, because you're trying to do the right thing and get skinny over the screen. And, you know, Trae just kind of throws himself into you, which then turns into a you problem. So, you know, it is what it is there. But, and Trae obviously, you know, kind of got hot with the far out 3-point shots and whatever, like he's wont to do sometimes. But, all in all, I thought that Mikal played like a fairly solid defensive game on him. Though again, like you said, maybe there's the double the demoralizing factor for you know, for Mikal, and then the demoralizing factor for Trae if he's getting scored on over and over by Mikal on one end, and then Mikal kind of gets to hold that over to him on the other side. And we know that Mikal is a pretty solid trash talker and taunter in a polite enough way that he doesn't get called for it all the time. So
the snorkel celebration. That's
the snorkel celebration. He likes to steal other people's celebrations and then throw it back at them on the bench and stuff like that too. Like he was doing the whole like tip your cowboy hat thing to Bruce Brown earlier this year, crap like that. But you know, whatever. Yeah, like maybe that would have helped a little bit. Another guy, I don't know, maybe needed some format. I'm wondering if he just wasn't feeling well health wise in this game. I was a little baffled by like Deuce only getting 8 minutes in this game.
He got hurt. They mentioned in the broadcast. I think it was here. I wrote it down. Let me find. I thought a rib contusion maybe, but he was questionable coming in.
Questionable with that coming in. I thought.
Left rib contusion. So that's why I guess he just wasn't feeling well.
I guess it just got reactivated. He also had like the entire training room's worth of tape on his arm too. So I guess something's not feeling good. That's a guy that needs some rest over. Well, I'm glad that you caught that because I was a little spacey in the first half. I must have missed that. But either way, kind of I don't want to say a step back for the bench, but like not as good of a bench showing in this one. Granted, it was essentially just a 2-man bench of Campaign and Landry Shamet a little bit. The Shamet had a couple okay moments, like shot 2 of 3, had 4 points, like had a nice little like foul line jumper at one point that stood out. But you know, they didn't make as much of an impact in this game as the last game. You can't expect that for every game, I guess, but I do feel like maybe down the stretch the execution is slightly better if they were able to just kind of give guys a little more wind on the bench, you know, and eat a couple more minutes, in the second half there, but is what it is. I guess it's not the end of the world since the Knicks ultimately won the game. But yeah, just wish the bench could have given just a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll disagree a little there. I thought Payne was fantastic. I mean, again, like had the personal 9-0 run to start the fourth quarter.
That's true.
Did like
That's
they
true.
they like trusted him to stay in then for like 8 minutes, which they normally pull him when Brunson comes back in. And I almost wish they would have stuck with that. He did miss I think he missed all 3 of his threes during that stretch, and like one of them was from the court. It was 121-116, and he had the 3 that was halfway down and out, and that would have saved that they would not have gone to overtime in retrospect if that had gone in. Presumably, maybe butterfly effect, something happens. But I thought Payne was really good. Had a nasty pick and roll to open the quarter where he just snaked it back, baited both defenders, whipped it to Precious, and I thought Shamet was good too. Like he played really good defense on Trae Young, like stopping him a couple of times. Like, and I almost would have with the way Mikal was struggling in the third, I would have put Shamet back in earlier and give him a chance because I mentioned it yesterday. He's been much better against point guards than he is against bigger wings. So I thought they were good. And then Deuce got hurt. Huckporty sucked in his 2 minutes. Second straight game, he struggled. I don't really understand that from Tibbs, where he's like, all right, Huckporty, here are your 2-3 minutes at the end of the first quarter. Go out there and have fun, kid. But maybe just trying to buy some minutes. But I wish Payne had played more earlier in the game. I think they could have bought some time. But I do empathize with Tibbs. This was a trickier night minutes wise with Deuce getting hurt. The only other thing I want to note before we wrapped up, the Knicks allow 19 offensive rebounds, and that's where if there were dead legs from just an entire first quote unquote first half of the season with crazy minutes, really first 2/3 of the season with crazy minutes and playing back to back, that's where it showed. When Huckporty was in the game, the Hawks got 5 offensive rebounds on that last possession of the first quarter before ultimately getting free throws. That was ridiculous, and that boosted that number. But I thought it was an issue all night long. They finished with 24 second chance points. And it's something that I think some rest for Towns will do better. He, for whatever reason, like maybe it was the knee bugging him on and off, but since that thumb injury, he has not been nearly the same rebounder he was early in the season. I think it's had a cascade effect because outside of Hart, you're just not playing a lot of good rebounders.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I'm not going to lie, Gavin, it's like we're recording this pretty late. I think I'm pretty much done with this game, if I'm being honest. Cool. I'm ready for the All-Star break too. It's been a heck of a first quote unquote half of the season. And I think I've pretty much exhausted my thoughts on this one, though I do agree with you. Perhaps I sold campaigns night a little short. Thanks to that self 9-0 run was pretty solid. Anyway, unless you have anything else to add, I think we could probably wrap this one up and head into the All-Star break. And maybe we'll be back with a little All-Star preview content before the weekend. And then, of course, some more stuff to fill time next week. We got to figure that one out. Perhaps a mailbag or something. We would love to hear from you guys. And so, you know what? Consider this. If you made it this far in the episode and you're in like our YouTube comment section, feel free to leave us a question if you want something you're curious about for next week that we can look into. We'd love to do that. But anyway, until next time, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.